So, and like we were saying before, it's going to be very informal. So whenever anyone wants to jump in, have questions, thoughts, you're more than welcome to, okay? I do have, is it possible to share?
Oh, yes, let me make you a co-host real quick.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. And so this is my experience when it comes to, you don't see it yet.
We see your desktop.
Okay, I don't think I clicked on it. Let's see, I did click on it. That's strange. Okay.
There we go.
Now we see it.
Okay, good. So my background and experience when it comes to applied behavior analysis, I've been a teacher for over 25 years, and my experience as a teacher is very different than the experience that I've gained through applied behavior analysis. So I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I currently do that. I have clients, and I also do some early intervention evaluations. So I get to see children as they are starting in the process and in the journey with some of those diagnoses. So that's my experience with that. What I would like to do when it comes to ABA is, a lot of parents, what I've noticed is they fear ABA. A lot of people, when they hear ABA, it's like, oh, what is that? You know, I don't want it. I can't do it. But my goal today is just to emphasize that ABA is a tool for learning and teaching. Okay, and it's a tool that can be very valuable to give us information. Okay, so I also wanted to, I started with the summary, even though the summary usually goes all the way in the end. I want to go sort of like backwards. So another point that I'm hoping to get across is that even when we are not purposefully teaching, we are still teaching. Okay, and even when our intentions are not to learn, we're still learning. Okay, and also to always be in the present moment, because the moment can be rich with opportunities to teach. Okay, so when it comes to applied behavior analysis, that is our goal, to understand in order to teach. So I wanted to start from the very beginning and just do a brief explanation. So when it comes to learning and teaching, well, why do we have to learn? And why do we have to teach? There is a progression that happens during development with children. Children gain skills, and those skills are usually gained naturally, just by being in the environment, by noticing things, by hearing people talk, by playing with your family. You gain those skills. We all gain those skills. And so at each point in our lives, at each stage and age, we gain new skills, and that takes us to the next developmental level. So when we talk about child development, we're talking about time and skill. Okay, skills are great, but if a child by 10 is still gesturing to communicate, then that's considered a delay because they don't have the words. Whereas a child who's 10 months old is gesturing, that's a great skill, and they have what they need. So when we talk about child development and children being where they need to be when it comes to development, we're talking about skill and time. Okay. So when we notice that our child is not gaining those skills at the time that's expected, we tend to compare them to other children. Well, he's not saying words. I have a nephew, I have a friend whose child is talking, and mine is not. So we tend to do a lot of comparison. And even though there is a range, so children can develop at their own rate, there's still a range of age that the child can gain those skills from, let's say, 12 months to 15 months. If they are below that, then that would be considered a delay. Okay, so this kind of gives us an idea of what to expect at each age and time. Okay, so what happens? In this, I just wanted to quickly show you visually what the development looks like. And when a child gets evaluated, usually through early intervention, this blue area here is where most children lie and where most people are. This is where they gain those skills. This is where it's expected. And this is what we call the developmental curve, and also standardized. So most assessments are standardized because they compare it to other children. So if you don't follow this blue area, then that's considered a delay. And if you go to the left, the further you are from that blue area, the more delay or the more skills you're lacking. Okay. For many children who fall in the left-hand side, they're only lacking those skills and they can gain those skills. Okay, with purposeful teaching and support, they can gain those skills. For some others, they don't gain those skills so easily. So the question is always why? What's happening? If, usually people gain those skills just naturally, just by existing. Why is my child not gaining those skills at the time that's expected? Because remember, development is skill and time, right? So why is my child not gaining those skills at the time that's expected? What tends to happen is if the child receives, and I know I'm starting in the beginning, but we have to get an understanding of where we are to know where we're going. So if the child is not gaining the skills when there is purposeful teaching through therapy, then we tend to recommend that they go see a developmental pediatrician who is an expert in different kinds of development, right? So this pediatrician can, based on the questions and the observations, can determine which group your child is following. And each of those groups, which have a diagnosis, so the names are the names of the groups, each of those groups gains skills in a particular pattern. Okay, so that is why those kids are in the group that they're found in, right? So if your child is, looked at and they might be placed in the autism group, then there are specific characteristics that they have in common. Okay, when it comes to autism, some of the characteristics are lack of language, lack of social skills, and then there's sensory issues. Okay, and so not two kids are exactly the same when it comes to autism. They're all very different, and that is why it is a spectrum, because they're all very different. They just have the common characteristics of the lack of, one of the things that I find, the lack of language and social skills, even though some of them can speak and can speak very well, better than me, like scientists, when it comes to language related to social skills, we do see that deficit. It could be understanding nonverbal communication, like social cues. Many of those kids, if they have strong interest in certain things, they just want to talk about those things, and they won't give another person the chance to add their opinions. So still, that language component is still affected, even if they can articulate at a higher level. Okay, one of the other things is that sensory component, and that is how they regulate information their systems gain. I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a sip. So, so far, does this make sense? Okay, so what it comes down to is teaching, a lack of those skills. And that's what I wanted to start. I think I may have to give me a second. got this itchy thing. I'm sorry that happened. So that's why I wanted to start in the beginning, because the question is always, what is my child lacking? And how can I teach it? Okay. So when it comes to applied behavior analysis and learning, these are some of the questions that we're thinking about. So before we start teaching, it's sort of like a roadmap. We want to know where we are in order to know where we want to go, because every child has a different starting point. Some kids might already have certain skills and you don't have to start there. Some kids may be lacking those skills and may need to start earlier in that learning process. Okay, so we have this term in education that's called zone of proximal development. And that area is that is the perfect spot, that Goldilocks, spot where it's not so difficult that it's going to frustrate the child, but it's not so easy that it's not going to teach new things. So we always have to understand, where are we and where are we going? So when we're thinking about supporting the child and teaching, we might ask questions like, what is my child doing? Why does he do that? Who taught my child to do that? We might think, we don't do that at home. I didn't teach my child that. Why are they doing that? And how can I help my child learn better? So what we want to do is gain a greater understanding. And that's what applied behavior analysis does. It creates understanding. So this is the definition of applied behavior analysis. Applied behavior analysis is the science in which tactics derived from the principles of behavior and are applied systematically to improve socially significant behavior, and experimentation is used to identify the variables responsible for the behavior change. This is my personal opinion, when we focus on ABA looking like a science, it's a scary thing. But when we focus on ABA being a natural part of just existing, it makes more sense. And that was my hope. That's why I put this definition straight from the book. It's a definition that we usually go with. But the truth of the matter is that we don't have to think this way to use the tactics of ABA. Okay. So this is how ABA can answer some of those questions. So what is my child doing? So what they're doing is called behavior. Anything that we do is behavior. Anything that you can see is behavior. Okay. Why does he do what he does? That is called the function. So their behavior is getting them something, and that is a function. It's like a button that makes something happen, like a switch. I turn on the switch, the light goes on. So I always turn on the switch because the light goes on. And who taught my child to do that? Consequences. And we'll explain what these are in a few minutes. So consequences is what taught my child that cause and effect relationship with the behavior and the function. And how can I help my child use better ways to communicate? And that is through ABA. That's how we can do that. So applied behavior analysis does help us to answer these questions for our child when we're trying to teach them. So bottom line is teaching. That's what therapy is focused teaching. So if I want to work on, helping my child walk, I might use someone who has the expertise in muscles and motor development, and then I can focus my attention. So even if as a parent, I'm sitting next to my child and I'm teaching them how to use a spoon, which we all do, and we don't need a science to teach us how to teach a child to use a spoon. We're teaching a child how to eat with a spoon. And we're sitting there, you can call that therapy. You can say, hey, I'm doing therapy on how to teach my child to use the spoon, because you have a very specific question and you're trying, you're using strategies and you're being consistent with the strategies to teach them to use a spoon, and eventually they use a spoon. So that's exactly what therapy does. So therapy is just specific teaching. So there are two kinds of behaviors. There's respondent behavior, which are more reflexes, things that happen happen naturally. For example, if I smell pepper and I sneeze, that sneeze, it's natural, is respondent behavior. And then there's operant behavior. And that is something that we learn. And we learn it through cause and effect. So operant behavior are the behaviors that applied behavior analysis focuses on. Okay, those behaviors are selected. They're selected based on the function that it provides. And I will illustrate that in a little bit. So all behavior is communication. And I have a few videos to show that. So, and you guys can just speak it out. We have this guy here and he's scratching. What do you think he says with his behavior?
Something itches.
Something itches, right? So he didn't have to say, oh, I'm itching, let me scratch.
Mhm.
David told us it's itchy. How about this?
Come here.
Come here.
Mhm.
Exactly. So that's what he says. They don't have to say it verbally. The behavior can say. How about this one?
It could be a couple of different things, probably. Maybe I'm scared.
Yes.
Something scared
Perfect.
me.
Perfect. It could be a lot of different things. And we're going to talk about that because it could be a lot of different things. I'm sorry. I think I'm pressing the wrong button. Here we go. Okay. So to figure out what it means exactly. So the first two, they were a little clearer. Yes. But the third one, babies can cry for many different things, right?
Mhm.
Diaper change, hunger, attention, just anything, not feeling well. So when it comes to understanding what the behavior means, applied behavior analysis, it's a science. So it provides us with tools on how to understand behavior by translating it. I like to call behavior like a language you have to translate. Each child has their own language, their own behavior, and we have to translate it in order to understand it and teach them a new language, a language that can be understood by more people. So the process that we use is called the ABC, the antecedent behavior consequence. So antecedent are all events that happen prior to a behavior that elicit that behavior. Okay, so it could be it's raining outside and now I have to open up my umbrella. So the rain made me open up my umbrella or indicated that I needed to open up my umbrella. The rain is the antecedent, okay? The behavior is how I respond to the changes that happen in my environment. Okay? And then the consequence is the event that happens after my behavior. So once I opened up the umbrella, what happened after is that I didn't get wet. Okay, so we tend to use the word consequence in everyday language as a negative thing, sort of. You know, don't do that, you're gonna see the consequence, it's gonna happen, don't do it. Where it's actually neutral, because the consequence could be something that, for example, if I don't like chocolate and I get chocolate, that situation, that instance will be negative for me because I don't like chocolate. Whereas somebody else may like chocolate, and the consequence for them at that point will be positive. Okay. Because we tend to respond differently to different events, it's very personalized. Applied behavior analysis also personalizes the understanding of that individual, and the teaching and the learning is personalized because everyone has different things that motivate them. So behavior can have two different things, okay? We can describe behavior two different ways. The first one is the form, which is what it looks like. And the second one is the function, what it does or what it gets, okay? We look at the function of behavior in order to translate the behavior. Okay, so the form will be what it looks like. So when it comes to the baby crying, it just looks like he's crying, right? But if I separate crying, let's say he's crying at 12, and I come and I give him a bottle, he stops crying, then he's happy. The function of that cry was hunger. He needed to get his food. And another, later on, he's crying, I go and I check the diaper, change the diaper. That cry was more for my diaper's dirty, I'm uncomfortable. You know, if he's in his bed and I'm next to him and he wants attention and he's crying and I pick him up, at that moment, it was because of attention. He didn't want the milk, he didn't want the diaper change, everything was good. It was more attention. So the function of the behavior tells us more than the form. Okay, another example would be me raising my arm. You know, I can raise my arm. The form would look the same, you're just raising your arm. But I could be in a classroom, raise my arm, and the function will be, I want my teacher's attention. Or I can be outside walking and I raise my arm because I see a friend and I'm waving, I'm saying hi. I can be in my kitchen, I raise my arm because I can't reach something and I need to reach it, I need to try to get to it. Or I can sit for a long time in front of the computer and suddenly I go like this and what I'm doing is stretching. So the form looks the same, which is you raising your arm, but the function is different, what it provides at that point. Okay, it's very different. So when we're trying to understand behaviors, we look at the function. Okay. And using the antecedent behavior consequence, we can understand the function clearer based on the consequence. Because the function is what the consequence provides. Okay, so if my behavior is to get my teacher's attention and I raise my hand and she calls on me and I give them the answer, then I will always raise my hand when so that she can call me. But if I'm in the classroom and again, the antecedent would be a question, the teacher says, you know, what is 3 times 5? You know, and so I can raise my hand. That would be the behavior. The consequence is she will call me and I'll give her the answer. But let's say I call out. And this happens very often in the classroom. I call out and I say 15. And the teacher looks at me and says, don't call out. That's correct, but don't call out. And I continue to do it. Again, there's a question and I call out. And the teacher looks at me again. I told you, don't call out. Well, the reason why that continues to happen is because that is for attention. The student wants to provide the attention and the teacher provides the attention. The student wants the attention and the teacher provides it. So regardless whether the attention is for something positive or negative, it is still attention. Okay, and it still provides that consequence or that function for the behavior. Does that make sense so far?
Mhm.
So there are 4 functions of behavior. Okay, 4 possible functions. One is attention. One is tangible. One is to escape or avoid. And the other one is automatic reinforcement. So if I want my friend's attention, my behavior might be picking up my cell phone and dialing her number. Okay. If I'm hungry and I want to eat, maybe I pick up the phone and I place an order a pizza pie or something that will be tangible. Or if I go to the refrigerator and I get myself some water, my behavior of walking to the refrigerator was to obtain that water, which is tangible. Okay. Let's say my phone rings and I pick it up and I see like a 1-800 number and I want to avoid telemarketers. What I will do is just hang up. So my behavior of pressing that hanging up button is to avoid the people on the other line. Or let's say I have a headache. I take aspirin. My behavior of taking aspirin is to escape that pain. Okay. So all the behaviors we engage in, there is a function attached to it. And it's one of these. Automatic reinforcement is when the consequence, what you're receiving from the behavior, does not come from anyone that can control it. Okay, and I'm putting all of these in my own words to make more sense out of it. So they tend to be those sensory related stimulatory behaviors. So they gain from their body what they need, the reinforcement that allows them to continue to do that, to engage in what they engage in. So for example, if you have a pen, sometimes I do this, I'm clicking the pen. I'm not doing it to get anyone's attention, unless I'm really doing it to get somebody's attention. Like I'm gonna do this so they can call me out on it. But if I'm going like this, I'm by myself, I'm just doing some work and I'm just clicking the pen. That is automatic reinforcement. I'm not doing it to get attention. I'm not doing it to get something to eat or to get a toy. I'm not doing it to escape anything. I'm doing it for whatever the reason. It's providing, my body's just relaxed doing that. Some people kind of move their legs. Sometimes as they're sitting, they just shake their legs. For some kids, it's repetitive behaviors, you know, maybe spinning some wheels. It could be vocal behavior, certain sounds that get repeated. It can look really different for different children, but whatever they do, their body receives something for it that allows them to continue to do it. It reinforces that behavior. Okay. On a side note, those stimulatory behaviors are harder to kind of work with and remove because of that, because we cannot control the consequence. Okay, for other things, if a child calls out in a classroom and I want to help that child to obtain a different behavior, I can just not respond to him when they call out. I can look the other way. So I can control that consequence. I can control the reinforcer. But when it comes to automatic reinforcement, that's a very difficult thing to work on, okay? Because the child provides themselves with that reinforcement. What we tend to work on when it comes to automatic reinforcement and stimulatory behavior is replacing it with something that can provide them with the same stimulation that they're looking for. So let's say that I love to watch something spinning, but that spinning, which up to a certain point, it's okay. But when it starts to interfere with the learning process and safety, then it does become an issue. So it's not about preventing children from engaging in the things that make them feel good, but rather making sure that it's not interfering with how they proceed in their routine and how they learn. Because many times they can stay focused on that one thing for a long time, and they miss a lot of opportunities to learn. So what we do try to do is replace it with something that's a little bit more appropriate and something that doesn't interfere as much. Okay, so I have some examples of some videos that would illustrate the function of attention. This one is the function of attention. Hopefully it goes straight into the video. Do you see that? Did it go straight into the video? Okay.
No.
Here.
I think I have to stop and then. Okay, let me see. Here it is. Okay. So then he goes on and on because he would throw himself on the floor to gain that attention, but he wasn't getting it. But that is a behavior that has previously been reinforced, which means he had received a function. And that's why no behavior continues unless it's connected to a function. We don't just randomly do things. It has to be one of those four functions. If we're going like this, it's, if we're hot, right? Or we're telling somebody, come here. Or if it's automatic reinforcement, if my body just, for whatever the reason, is doing this and I'm enjoying it. So it has to be connected to one of those four. We don't just randomly do things, So when it comes to us thinking about behaviors and trying to understand its function, many times we hear a lot of, they just did it. There was no reason. There was no reason behind it. They just did it. There's always a reason, but we tend to miss the reason because we're doing so much at the same time. We're cooking, we're cleaning, we're doing so much. So we do tend to miss. That's why sometimes when the person, that's their job to do that and make the observation, it works better because that's all they're doing. They're just making observations to create a plan, a teaching plan, like a lesson plan. So this is another one. Let's see.
I think she's doing it right now.
I will be on my phone all week. Looks like.
Now, when it comes to understanding behavior and apply behavior analysis, it's important to understand that it's because it's so effective with children in the spectrum and children with different disability, it's become like synonymous. Like, oh, you think of autism, you think of ABA, you think of ABA, you think autism. And it's not really like that. Applied behavior analysis is just an understanding of behavior and can be used anywhere in any setting. There are many organizations that use it actually within their system and not related to any disability. So this child is just a typical child in daycare. Okay, so do one of you want to tell me what happened and sort of like explain to me following the consequence and the behavior and maybe some function? Do you feel comfortable doing that? Okay, so he's at daycare and he's playing by himself. So when I'm making an observation, I first think of the condition, what's happening. So he's by himself. So that tells me, number one, okay, does he want attention? Could be because he's by himself, right? Does he want a toy? Well, he's not going for any toy. He has a toy that he's playing with. Is he engaging in automatic reinforcement? Is he repeating certain things? Is he going back and forth with his car like this? And he's just looking at the tires and just very restrictive, repetitive behaviors. No, I didn't see that. Is he trying to avoid something? It didn't seem like he was trying to avoid something. So I'm going to assume that it is attention that he wants. So if we go ahead and look at him here, he's playing, he looks at his friends, at the other he does one thing. He's like, and he's going with the truck and he's like, maybe that will get somebody's attention. But what happens is that behavior didn't get the attention. So then it escalated to the next level. The next level now is his tongue. Hey, so me going didn't get anyone's attention. I'm still alone. I want attention. So I'm going to get my tongue involved. Maybe that will get the attention. But that didn't get the attention, right? So let's see what happens next. So now he swats at him, but that still didn't get the attention. So it will always continue to escalate until that function is met, until that behavior gets the function. You know, you're pressing different buttons until you find the button that actually turns on the light. So now he scratches him. So the way that reinforcement works is the behavior that's right, the closest to that consequence is the one that gets reinforced. Okay, so a situation like this child most likely in the future, when he wants attention of another child, would just go ahead and scratch. And that's how those behaviors start, especially in daycare. You know, where you have those kids who are constantly, you know, their parents are being called and the parents are like, what's going on? They don't see that at home. What's happening? I don't understand. This is what's happening. You know, their behaviors escalated, and that's the level where it gets reinforced. So that's the one that functions. That's the button that turns on the light. Okay, so even though it starts with one thing, it just escalates. And this is important to know, not just to understand why he's scratching, but also to understand what we decide to reinforce. You know, sometimes we say no to the child, and then the child kind of escalates. Then, please, can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it? No, no. Then they start to cry. No, no. And then suddenly they throw themselves on the floor. And at that point, we become overwhelmed. So we're like, okay, fine, here, have it. Okay, so, okay, fine, here, have it. Just reinforce that level of behavior. So when that child wants that next time, that's what they'll do. The tantrums will start, throw themselves on the floor.
I was going to ask if he might also be trying to engage in play with another child, but didn't know how to do it.
Definitely. And that's the important key. So
Yeah.
through understanding, so with applied behavior analysis, you understand this point. Hey, he was trying to get the attention.
Right.
What is that letting me know? He's lacking a skill. He doesn't know how to better get that attention. So that would be a great target, you know, for us to create a lesson plan, usually called treatment plans or other kinds of plans. So that's, you got it, you know, you hit the nail on the head. That's the reason why. It's not just to say, oh, look at that kid, he wants attention. You know, so what will be the next step to that? Will be to understand that that's the skill that's lacking. Okay. And of course, these are videos, and you know, it's not like I actually made the observation with this kid, but assuming that's what it is. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show when it comes to behavior function. Anytime you see something, you see a behavior happening, you see something, always think of function. Like, try to get used to that. Okay, behavior function, behavior function, behavior function. Oh, why is that happening? It's not because they're being spiteful. There's always something connected to it. There's a function. So the question is, why? What's the function? Why is it happening? So I just wanted to illustrate this. So level 1 here will be the child, let's say in the supermarket, saying candy. And you say, no, no candy. Then it escalates to level 2. And the levels I made up. It's not level 1, 2, and 3. That's just more for illustration. Then it goes up to crying. And then the crying goes up to meltdowns. Okay. And that's the point that we give them the candies. Because when it comes to reinforcement, and function is a two-way street. So while the child's trying to get tangibles, to get the candies, we are trying to avoid people looking at us. Okay, so in us trying to avoid people looking at us and this noise that's happening and being the center of attention, we reinforce the inappropriate behavior so we can escape it. Okay, so when it comes to behavior and reinforcement, it's a two-way street. Okay. So what happens when there's a connection? There is an association that happens, a relationship between behavior and function. And if that association, that connection has been happening for a long time, to create a break between the behavior and the function takes a lot of perseverance, is the word. Because what's going to happen is, if I decide to detach the function from the behavior, that behavior is going to have some kind of expectations of things that used to happen. There's a history there, and suddenly it stops. That causes an increase in behavior. Okay. So if I'm used to going to my friend's house and I knock at my friend's door, and I'm used to my friend opening the door, and we usually have coffee every day at the same time, I go, and that's the history, right? So my behavior of going to her house, knocking at her door, gets me the function of spending time with her, getting coffee. Suddenly one day I show up and she doesn't open the door. What's the first thing that happens?
I wonder what's wrong. Is she not there? Is she sick? Something.
And then what happens? What do you just knock? She doesn't open
And
the
I
door.
go home.
You use your cell phone and call her.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yep.
Or right.
Yep. You might take out your cell phone. You might knock harder. You might say, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Knock, knock, knock really hard. Finally, let's say you 10 minutes knocking at the door. She doesn't come. You go and you leave. So the behavior does increase when there is new teaching to happen or new associations to be made. Okay. When that happens, there is an increase in those behaviors. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate that with this video. And
reason.
okay, and this
Okay.
video, and again, a child that's verbal, typical child. I'm not gonna, it's a long video, it's 10 minutes, but I'm just gonna fast forward some of the important points that I think. What I get from the video, I'm just gonna give you a summary, is this parent is trying to get her child to get their own drink. I guess, and I did the same thing for my kids for a long time. When they were thirsty, I would get them their drink. I always had their drinks prepared, but then it comes to a transition that you realize, wait a minute, but they're 8, they're 9, they could get their own drink. And that becomes a teaching moment, right? So we're teaching without realizing that we're teaching, and we're replacing contingencies that had been created in the past. So the expectation was, I'm thirsty, my mom gets me my drink, right? That's the chain that has been created, but suddenly you're detaching that function and you're creating another function, which is, you want a drink, you get it yourself. And in creating that new teaching, at first it creates some behaviors, right? Some discomfort. And this is what's happening to this child.
Cup of the dishwasher. I don't have to give you 3 reasons. You're a big boy and you can get your own drink. I don't want to get me a drink. Get a cup out of the dishwasher. I didn't say help me get a drink. I said I want you to get a drink for me. I'm not going to get it. You are a big boy. You can help yourself. Then I can't get any drinks in my life. help you, help yourself. Go get a cup out of the dishwasher. Preston, don't do it for him. Yeah, but I do not know how. I don't know how to get the drinks in the refrigerator. I will show you how. Why?
So this is a process when we're trying to recreate the expectation or recreate the history or recreate the association in that learning process, we call that extinction. Okay, so when we withhold the reinforcement that a behavior is used to receiving, that's extinction. And that will create an increase in behavior. Many people get really afraid when that happens. They, they say, this is not working. He's getting worse.
Yeah.
This is definitely, I don't want this. And many people get really afraid of that. And that's why I think when it comes to applied behavior analysis, a lot of people are kind of like looking the other way because not everyone wants to deal with certain behaviors.
It takes time. That's the
It
problem.
does.
It takes a lot of time. And as you said, perseverance.
It really, really
Yep.
does.
Yep.
So with this child, let's see, his tantrum took a while, like
Sheesh.
10 minutes, and he was still fighting with his mom about the drink. It would have been quicker to just get the drink. I think finally she, which is great, she did not give in. I think she had him get the drink himself.
7 years old?
7.
It's like a 2-year-old.
No. Let's see if I find it.
Always let us have Get the chair. Get the chair right here. Now. Pull it over here.
Let me see, it's towards the end. He finally does it.
Bring it over to the table. Put the chair back. Open it up. I don't know how. Twist it. I'm twisting as hard as I can. Where are you going? Come over here and drink your drink.
For all that.
Yep, after all that. Now, at any point, I give her a lot of credit because at any point she
Yeah.
could have just given up and said, I gotta cook. I gotta go do
Yeah.
the things I gotta go to. It took like 10 minutes and something. And she still did it. I'm pretty sure that next time, if she continues to do that, he just will get his own drink.
Very similar argument I just had with my daughter the other night.
Your daughter?
She's 6, yeah. And she does. My son's 3, and I still do obviously a lot more for my son than what I do with my 6-year-old, and she doesn't understand why I don't feel like I need to help her as much on certain things that she's more than capable of doing.
Yeah, it's a difficult transition. You had to be used to this way, and we all experience that. Like if there's traffic outside and we're used to taking one road to get to work, and suddenly we get there and there's construction and it's closed and there's a detour. It's like, what? That's where that road range comes in. That's extinction. Like I'm used to going that way. Suddenly you're telling me there's another way. So it happens to everyone. Let's see. And then some strategies, which is really important, kind of work against us if we're not thinking of the function of it. So let's say the function is...
People remember heartwarming ads. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance, here's a touching...
Let's say the function is for me is to escape something. Okay, this is why the function is so important. If it's to escape something, and I'm gonna let you watch it and see what you guys think of it.
Piper, your breakfast is uneaten. Listen to me. Go eat your breakfast or you're going to timeout. You're in timeout? You'd rather be in timeout than eat your breakfast? Go eat.
I'm a choo-choo train. Choo-choo train doesn't have any mouth.
Although, while technically accurate, choo-choo trains do not have mouths. You are not a train. Go eat breakfast.
I'm a train.
Do you want to go to timeout?
I do want to go to timeout. I do.
So mom wants her to eat. And she's telling her, if you don't eat, you're going to timeout. So what we've discussed with the function of behavior, if her four functions, so attention, wanting tangibles, escape and avoid, or automatic reinforcement. If her behavior, what do you think her behavior is? What do you think the function is?
Escape.
Escape.
Right. She wants to avoid eating.
Avoid eating. So the mother's strategy to get her to eat is to give her time out. Would time out help her avoid eating or help her eat?
Help her avoid. She's kind of already in her own timeout. She walked away, didn't she?
Yep. Yep, exactly. So when you have, let's say, and I always, my experience in the class, when you have teachers that, you have a child who is trying to, for whatever the reason, maybe they're not at the level, they're frustrated, and there's a quiz and they're taking the quiz, suddenly they're acting out, they're talking, and the teacher says, go to the principal's office. They just escaped the quiz, which was creating, they didn't want to take it. They were just reinforced. So you will find that child engaging in that behavior more often. Every time there's work, every time there's something happening, they know what to do to press the teacher's buttons to be sent out of the classroom, to escape. So we have to think about what the consequence is, what the function is, and then select what we need to do to respond, because our action actually reinforces certain behaviors. So sometimes we say, I don't know why they do that. They do it based on the reinforcement they receive. And sometimes we provide them with the reinforcement that actually does the opposite of what we want. And that's the important thing about understanding the functions. Okay, so just really quick. So the way that behaviors increase or decrease is based on reinforcement. Reinforcement is increasing behavior. And that is probably you've heard of positive reinforcement, which is what we tend to work a lot with. We always want to increase appropriate behavior, and we want to increase it by providing things, So if a child does something that's great and I give them a high five, that's positive reinforcement. They're receiving something for what they did. And if they like that something, that's the only way if it's a reinforcer, their behavior will increase. So once I worked with a child who actually did not like praise. So for him, if he did something, you're like, wow, you did a good job. It would turn the opposite. He will stop and there will be a tantrum. So his behavior would actually decrease. His on-task behavior would decrease. And for him, it was a little different. It used to be, oh, that was great. Like very, that was great. We didn't make a big deal about it. Negative reinforcement is when it comes to reinforcement and increasing behaviors, we're talking about what the child is trying to get, what the function of their behavior is. not what I'm trying to do as a teacher, right? So if a child is, I want to increase a behavior, but it's through negative reinforcement, then I want to increase, if I remove something and their behavior increases, then it's negative reinforcement, right? So if, let's say, I want to increase my daughter, you know, cleaning her room, I say, I will take away your cell phone. But they want to prevent that. They don't want that to happen. So they're going to clean their room so the cell phone doesn't go away. Okay. When it comes to punishment, that is decreasing behavior. Okay. So when we talk about punishment, it's not, again, the way that we use it every day. Like, you know, I'm going to punish you. We use that word because we mean, I want you not to do that. I want to decrease that behavior. You know, if you don't clean your room, I'm going to punish you because I want to decrease the messiness in the room. Okay. Or your behavior, making it messy. And just like positive reinforcement, we have positive punishment. So something's presented to decrease the behavior. So it could be, I don't know, every time you do something, I'm going to put a little tally because I'm going to count how many times you don't do your homework or something like that. So I'm presenting something to decrease behavior. So you may not want to see all those tallies. I don't want all those tallies or all those little things on my name. So I'm going to decrease that behavior because I don't want that. Like every time you talk, there's a tally under your name, you know, when you speak during a test or something. The same thing goes for negative punishment. So you, let's say that I am walking by bees and I suddenly like touched the bee and it stung me. I want to decrease that behavior. So in the future, I don't walk by them. So I decrease my behavior of walking around them because I don't want, I want to remove that situation. Okay. So consistency, when it comes to consistency, the way that we respond is what actually is going to create that learning. Okay, just imagine yourself walking on a sidewalk and suddenly walking on the grass, sort of like taking off from the sidewalk and walking on the grass. The more you walk on the grass, what happens to it?
It gets worn down.
Gets
Right.
worn down. So you actually make
Right.
like a little path, right? That's the same thing that happens when you're learning. The more consistency and the more you practice, the more it creates that path. If you stop walking on it, then the grass comes back and it's nice and green. So if you want to recreate that learning, that new path, then consistency is key. Okay. Let's do this quick little video here.
The thing that's different about a verbal vacation home, you always have the whole place to yourself.
And this one is a illustration of, again, how we have to be so careful how consistent we are in responding. And I will try to kind of forward this one. So bottom line is he's crying because he wants cookie. Okay, so he's crying.
What's the matter, honey? We're gonna record. What's the matter? Show me. I'm right here. Show me what's the matter. No more cookies. The cookies are all gone. No more cookies.
Now notice he doesn't have the words. He's not saying cookie. He's not signing cookie. He's just, you know, he's crying and he's going to the closet where the cookies are. And based on that behavior, mom is saying he wants a cookie. You know, he's pointing to it.
No more cookies. They're all gone. No, there aren't any more out there either. We ate them all. They're all gone. No more cookies. If I can find one. Let me
So
see.
that goes on and on and on, and he cries and he
Friday.
screams, and she says,
I don't see them. See, they're all
no more
gone.
cookie. And then suddenly,
Oh, don't you start.
this happens.
Where are they? Maybe there's one way back here somewhere. Let's see. Maybe there's one. You still down there, Puddin'? I'm looking. Oh, no cookies, but we can have cups? There are no cookies, honey. They're all
She
gone.
keeps saying no cookies. Makes him cry.
I'm sorry. Do you want some green beans instead? Wait. Maybe I can find one. I found one.
Look at that smile.
Is everything better now?
Yeah. So, and this is very common, you know, where we tend to escalate the behavior and then reinforce that higher level behavior. You know, if you know you're going to give the cookie, why extend it? You know, just give the cookie, or just hold your ground and don't give the cookie at all. That's going to be worse. Yes, he's going to cry and cry and cry, but eventually he will learn there's no cookie. Why am I crying if I'm not getting the function? Any questions so far?
So at that point in time, and maybe it's just based on age, is it better to almost like distract them with something else to pull their attention away? Or would it be better to kind of work out that behavior fully involved with what they're asked? And so like with the cookie, you know, mom keeps saying no cookie, no cookie. At that age with my daughter, I would have, or even my son at this point, like I would try to distract them to something else and move on.
Yep. And there's different strategies and different, like what the goal will be. If the goal is, you know what, I don't mind giving them the cookies, but later, then, hey, I'm going to offer you something that might equally be reinforcing to you, maybe like a toy, or maybe I'm giving you attention, so I'm playing with you. So because it's competing, the reinforcing, you know, element, then they're okay. You know, like that fulfilled the function and I'm good for it right now. But if it's something that you never, ever want to give to them, let's say something that's not good for them or something that you're never going to, then at that point, just saying no and allowing them to learn what no means will be appropriate. You know, so it really depends on your need. But you're right, depending if they're little, we usually do use the distractors. Oh, hey, you could play with this instead. But that definitely, yeah. So
I was going to say, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you a question.
Sure.
unless that didn't answer Lakin's question, if she needed more.
No, go ahead.
So how do you address something when there's like a time limit? Like Ella is 12. And so she has Down syndrome and mild autism, and she takes an eternity to do anything because of her stubbornness. So how do you address something there are times that I still do things for her to get her out the door in the morning. Like her van comes at 7:07 in the morning, sometimes earlier than that, getting her out of bed is a chore just to get her moving. And while she likes to be independent, and I certainly want her to be independent, sometimes I'm doing it just because we're in a time crunch. So how do you address something like that? Because I'm kind of reinforcing the behavior, but
why do you think? Well, think about it for a second. Why do you think she takes longer? Does she always take long, or is it just in the morning before school?
I think it's just her. I think she takes long at a lot of things. And I hesitate to get her up any earlier because she's already not getting as much sleep as I think she should get. Now that this is her first year in middle school, so we had quite a transition from elementary to middle school. So I think a lot of it is, and the same thing relates to, I was going to share another example, giving her a shower. Like I'm trying to get her to be more independent to do that. It depends on her mood. And I have a hard time sometimes distinguishing behavior that's related to Down syndrome versus behavior that's related to autism. I think sometimes it overlaps a lot. But her downright stubbornness, if she's in the mood to get a shower, we can get that done. If not, it will take an eternity. And my temper is rising. I'm like, Ella, just get it done. So sometimes I have just left her in the bathroom. She's in there on the floor for an hour. And I'm like, okay, at what point do I try and walk away, and I'll come back periodically and say, are you ready? Sometimes she'll say yes. Sometimes it's just, it's like that persistence that we were talking about on my part too.
Right. And I'm wondering if for her, we want to create momentum. So we want to increase her compliance, right? Let's say. So I'm wondering if for her, what would work, it's something like selecting from there's different ways of addressing it. So selecting from all the tasks that you have to do, let's say in the morning, let's first select the morning before the bus, because that's very limited. I understand that, getting the child ready and out the door.
Right.
So how many tasks do you have in the morning that you have to, and you don't have to answer now, but this is just for you to think about, that you have to complete to get her closer to the door? Okay. How many of those can she do fully independent, quick? And how many of those do you kind of need to assist with to get it ready? So what I'm trying to say is, can she be independent with one task while you're doing the others? And then once she's doing that one task quickly, eventually, maybe in a month, behavior modification takes time. You might add another one of those steps to get her closer. So it's not like she's doing it all. Maybe doing it all might be too much for her right now, but maybe taking on one step or one task from the morning, but not just leaving it at one task. Now you have to think about what is the consequence that she'll be receiving. So sometimes we use like a token system or like a token economy where they are receiving certain things for completing each task. You could have a timer as motivation. So even if you have like an Alexa or something like that, that Alexa talks every so often, and you have, let's say, and you have to, of course, organize how many things you do. I don't know. Do you want her to make her breakfast? What are some of those things that she needs to do to get ready?
So there aren't really that many things. It's just that getting her behind out of bed is the problem.
Okay.
So she can get up, she can get dressed all by herself. She can use the bathroom by herself. I usually do get her breakfast she eats her breakfast at school, but I don't like her to leave on a completely empty stomach just because she takes medicine. So I give her a little something, and then we're ready to get on the van, but that takes a full stinking hour.
Okay. What does she really, really like that you can use as a reinforcer for her?
So she likes music, and that's usually what gets her out of bed. And the last week it was pretty good. She can get up and get dressed, and then I have to check on her. And then rather than coming into the bathroom to use the facilities, she's back there dancing. So we have to usually say, okay, end of song, we're moving on to the next task. And she is also a visual person. And I know part of this is my problem because it takes time to write things down. Okay, and she likes to check things off. Okay, I did this. But there again, the mornings are rushed.
Okay.
So I almost need to do it the night before.
Have you tried a
Write it down for her.
laminated?
Yeah.
Lisa, have you ever tried a laminated one?
I have, that's what we did with the intermediate unit when we first started doing this years ago. It was like Velcro.
Yeah, so you don't have to redo it every night.
Yeah. Right. That's true. That's true. Maybe I could have my husband do that.
What I was going to say is, so you could use number one, like antecedent strategy. So where you would do it before the behavior, right? So you can do it the night before. You can do certain things right before the behavior is to avoid certain things. That one in particular doesn't really teach. It just avoids it, right? When you teach is when you're confronting the thing that you don't want, right? When you're confronting it and you're putting it through extinction, you're going through behavior modification. So then she likes music. And this is just, of course, I haven't made any observations. I don't know her. This is just, we're talking about possible strategies. We tend to really feel confident with what we suggest based on observation, since we follow the science of ABA. But since she likes music, you can have some kind of, checklist, because she loves checking things off. So it could be like, you got up, check, you did this, check, you did this, check. And then maybe she could earn like a dance party right before the bus. So the quicker she's done, the more she can have the music. And maybe you put like a video on TV where she sees other kids, dancing, but she can earn that. Or she can earn, if you have a timer. So if she's visual, there are timers that have like the colors that are kind of decreasing. Have you ever seen those that have like the little, they could be red or they could be different color, but it just decreases as the time decreases. You can put something like that next to her bed. Like you tell her, okay, it's time to get up. Look, when the color goes down, or when the minutes, when you hear the beep beep, it's time for you to get up. And when you get up, wow, I can't wait to see what's in the bathroom waiting for you. In the bathroom, there's going to be a special song for you. And maybe once she walks in the bathroom, you can put that song.
Oh, that's an idea. Okay.
Yeah. Or, once she's in the bathroom. So it's sort of like a scavenger hunt. So somehow you motivate her out of the bed, and you're getting her excited. I can't wait to show you the song I selected for you this morning. Here, I'm putting that. She gets to the bathroom, put that song. Then you kind of move that to the next location. I can't wait for you to see what song we're going to get over there. It's going to be such a surprise. So you're always motivating her to go to the next thing, to the next level.
Okay. That's an idea.
Now, the other thing is, just practicing to be quicker. I want to see if we could get out of the house by this time. Let's see. And every day, if you write it, you can say, yesterday we went out at this time. Can we beat it tomorrow? If she maybe understands that concept. And maybe for the whole week, you can put in the time. We did it, look. And maybe the bus driver's like, wow, you did that? Look at you. And maybe gives her a star or something. So the bus driver can also be participate. She could have a little chart, and then the bus driver gives her a star if she makes it at that time. She could have like, does she have a clock or a watch that she carries with her?
She doesn't. I mean, she has a watch, but only for us to. When she was younger, she was known to elope, so we kind of had it as a way to identify where she was in case. But she usually uses my phone for time or for timer. Yeah.
Yeah, because if the bus driver is willing to, he can, the bus driver can reinforce her getting there at a specific time.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So again, just remember that behavior modification or extinction is going to create, some of those behaviors to increase. And this is exactly where the teaching happens, because if you decide, hey, I'm not going to take crying and screaming for you to get cookie, even though in the past I've given it to you because I didn't have time. I just wanted you to stop crying. But from now on, I'm going to teach you something different. So I'm going to remove that function of you getting the cookie for crying. And now I'm only going to give it to you when you say cookie. Okay. So that is teaching right there. You're recreating the association of that behavior with this outcome. The same thing goes with the language. How do we know a chair is a chair, a table is a table? Because we make the association. When I hear that sound, chair, I know that object, so I associate it. Over time, you'd say kids are born and they start to make the sound ma, 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 and ma, 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 ma means nothing. It's just the sound that the motor skills around their mouth can make. But every time they say ma, 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 that person comes to them. So they make the association of mama and that person. That person suddenly becomes mama. So everything's association. Okay, so always think of behavior, function, and always use the things that actually reinforce the child, that calls the child's attention. So if music is what she likes, use music, use it. You can spell music, every time she moves on, give her an M. If she moves on quicker to the other one, give her a U. She spells music, play that song. You know, so
Okay.
that's another way of adding like a token system, just giving her a letter of what she's going to earn, just to
Okay.
make her quicker. And you could add the component of the time. Hey, if you do it before this, you know, time, if it's visual, if she doesn't know how to tell the time if it's visual, once the color is gone, you're gonna get that M. You know, and then just keeping her going. And then maybe
was
that
just-
bus driver giving something too.
I was just thinking too that I wonder if part of the behavior is that it's overwhelming for her, the task, because there are a number of things she has to do to get out the door, or there are a number of things she has to do to get a shower. She has to undress. She has to use the bathroom. She needs to get out her things like her deodorant, or then she actually has to get in and wash. And I wonder if part of the behavior of avoiding it is it's just too much. It's overload.
Is there a
so maybe
difference when
breaking
you
it down.
prepare?
Is there, I'm sorry,
Is there a difference if you prepare everything?
if I prepare everything? What do you mean?
If you get her the deodorant, if you prepare all those little tasks for her and all she has to do is just get in the tub, does she do it quicker?
Not really.
No? Okay. Okay.
I try. I thought, well, maybe if I prep it and then she gets in. Totally, man. It's whether she's in the mood. It's funny because last night it worked beautifully because she wanted to go with my husband and do something. And my husband and I both said, okay, you can go, but first you need to get your shower. I love shower.
I love showers.
Did it, right? But if all we have to look forward to is, I don't want to go to bed. I'm like, well, you're not going to bed right away, but you still need to be clean, you know? So I think
Right.
it depends. She does do better if she knows she's getting a reward or something after the fact. But sometimes even that doesn't work. I think it's just tiredness and,
Right.
you know, whatever. Nothing's appealing at that point. But
Yeah, definitely. But that then it sounds like she might do better with some kind of token system, I think, where
Yeah.
she is receiving something. You could have a
so
special
breaking it down probably would be helpful too, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
after each task. I mean,
Yeah.
the overall picture is to get the shower, but if she uses the bathroom, okay, we do this, she gets this. If we undress, then we do this. So
Yep.
maybe I should start breaking, which of course requires more time, but we'll get there.
Everything requires time.
Yes. Okay.
Definitely.
I'll try that the next.
Okay, and just a few things, you know, some of these things when it comes to applied behavior analysis, it's okay to be a work in progress. And if the child cannot learn in the way that we teach, we must then change the way that we teach so the child can learn. And that's what applied behavior analysis does. If they're not learning, we believe and understand that everyone can learn. And if they're not learning, it's not them, it's us and our strategies that are not reaching them. You know, that motivation, like you said, well, if she's really motivated, if her dad was going to go out with her, she did it right away. She was quick. So you'll have to find a strong enough reinforcer that can make her move that way and that fast. You know, also understand that it is a two-way street. So just like she's trying to escape, maybe doing that and going as fast, you're trying to escape, you know, her taking that long. So you might give in and say, I am tired, I'm going to bed. So the quicker, you know, if you could avoid that, you reinforce the behavior you don't want because you yourself need that reinforcement. So it's a two-way street. When it comes to the strategies, it's not one size fits all. So I'm not going to use strategies that I've used in the past with this child and just say, here, use this, here you go, it'll work. Because as we saw, like timeout, you know, it may not mix. It may not be, you know, it may actually reinforce the function if it's to escape, you know, and I provide them with timeout. So there's very important specific support that everything we do targets. So we have to be very, very careful of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And then the last thing is this. And I'll be quick in reading it. I don't know if you ever heard the crow and the pitcher before, but let me just remove our pictures from here. One hot summer's day, a crow was searching for water to quench his thirst. He searched and searched and was almost dying of his thirst when he came across a pitcher. He excitedly hopped toward the pitcher. He was dismayed when he found it was almost empty. There was a small amount of water at the bottom of the pitcher, but the crow's beak could not reach it. In vain, the crow tried and tried to drink the water and almost gave up. Then the crow had an idea. He collected a pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. He scooped up another pebble, put it in the pitcher. One by one, he gathered pebbles and dropped them into the pitcher. He emptied more and more pebbles into the pitcher, and slowly the water rose up towards him. Eventually, when the pitcher was almost full, of small pebbles, the water had risen far enough for him to take a long and satisfying drink. Thus the crow had saved himself by the knowledge that his efforts, little by little, would do the trick. So I know many times it feels really overwhelming because we want to see, like, this is what I want and I want it, I want it now. But little by little, just changing one little tiny thing every day and just being consistent, that's why I'm saying, if you could think of a little tiny task that you can change in the morning, and you might take care of the rest for her, but that one thing she's doing by herself and she's doing it quick, that's a great thing. Because let's say a year passed by and every so often you took one little thing, a year passed by and she's doing it all by herself. You know, whereas when we're trying to see it all, that whole big picture, it just seems really overwhelming sometimes.
Agreed.
And and one last story. I love this one. This is the last one, and then we're all done. And have you heard of this one? Okay, this one's called Shake It Off and Step Up. One day a farmer's donkey fell into a well. The animal cried for hours as the farmer tried to figure out what to do. Finally, he decided the animal was old and the well needed to be covered up anyway. It just wasn't worth it to retrieve the donkey. He invited all of his neighbors to come over and help him. They all grabbed a shovel and began to shovel dirt into the well. At first, the donkey realized what was happening and cried horribly. Then, to everyone's amazement, he quieted down. A few shovel loads later, the farmer finally looked down the well and was astonished at what he saw. With every shovel of dirt that hit his back, the donkey was doing something amazing. He would shake it off and take a step up. As the farmer's neighbors continued to shovel the dirt on top of the animal, the donkey kept shaking it off and moving up a step. Pretty soon, everyone was amazed as the donkey stepped up over the edge of the well and trotted off. Life is going to shovel dirt on you, all kinds of dirt. The trick to getting out of the well is to shake it off and take a step up. Each of our troubles is a stepping stone. We can get out of the deepest well just by not stopping, never giving up, shaking it off, and taking a step up. So with everything that we do, we have to continue the consistency and just knowing that little by little, we'll get there. Thank you. And that's the end.
Thank you.
I may have stopped the recording. Hold on.